Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this beautiful, cold Thursday morning in Memphis. We are ready to cover a lot today. Man, a lot of questions already coming in, a lot of traffic. We're going to start off. Will Gunter over at the game 107.5 in Columbia, South Carolina, covers South Carolina, the SEC, and all of college basketball, football, all the sports. We got a lot to cover again. We'll talk with him. In second segment, Gary Harris had to reschedule here at the last moment. He actually has got one of his interns. He's got a mentor, and I thought I really respect what he does. He really works with those student interns at the station there in Tuscaloosa, trying to teach them about true grit journalism, and that's what Gary is. Hour number 2, the AD angle. Matt Dean will hop on with us, as well as ULM AD John Hartwell. So, hey, we've been watching college football. We're dialed in. This is a great time of year. I absolutely love it. Playoff national championship is coming up Monday. Michigan and Washington. I think that game, people say, well, there's no SEC team in there, I'm not going to watch. Well, you're crazy. I'm going to be watching every minute of it, because I think what is happening are, to me, in the last, since 1970, you've got 20 national championships for the SEC, 2.5 for the Big Ten. They're going for 3.5, baby steps, a little bit at a time. Ohio State won one in 2002, 5 minutes after the game against Miami. I'll never forget that. Neither will Miami and everybody else but Ohio State. And then they won in 97. Michigan split it with Nebraska. Nebraska had won the national championship. Dr. Tom Osborne, his last 4 years were his best. 94, 95, back-to-back national champions. 97, they win it again. They split it with Michigan. And then in 2014, the first year of the college football playoff, Ohio State beats Oregon, dominated them in that game. Look, Ohio State is not built like Iowa. Iowa's got, they won 10 games, but they have no offense. Ohio State is built much like Georgia, Alabama, LSU, your top tier SEC programs. They have athletes. They're good. Michigan has beaten them 3 years in a row. Michigan is a good football team. So is Washington. Washington's won 9 of their last 10 games by single digits. You keep winning those single digit games, I'm telling you, it makes you a better team. I absolutely believe it. Hey, possible coaching changes at Auburn. What are we hearing? Well, Philip Montgomery, the offensive coordinator, nothing in stone. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't think, as Philip Marshall put in Auburn Undercover the other day, that those two can coexist. It's hard to do that. That, one guy trying to say, but both of them trying to call plays. It's hard to do. And I really respect and trust what Philip Marshall says, but just look at it. Hugh Freeze was checked out in the bowl game against Maryland Saturday. I don't know where he was. He was in Nashville physically, but mentally he was on a recruiting trip. But Hugh Freeze, being completely transparent, knows how wide the talent gap is between Auburn and their biggest rivals, Alabama and Georgia. It's the widest it's been in 40 years. Look at that Auburn roster. Okay? Tell me, have you ever seen so little talent and there's no depth on the offensive line? I can't remember it, but this didn't happen overnight. Years of neglect by Gus Malzahn and poor coaching, poor recruiting. Brian Harsin made it worse. You're not going to win national championships by taking guys in the transfer portal from group of 5 schools. It's very difficult to do. I don't know how anybody can do it. You're fooling yourself. I mean, every website out there, when you sign a kid, they can doctor up the resume and the bio and make you think this kid should have been a high 4 or even a 5-star. I mean, it's incredible. These guys are great writers, but you got to tell the truth. All right. So, I don't know. Add another question here to Talk Jockey from Uncle Cornelius in North Georgia. How long before the players start quitting, opting out of the All-Star games, like the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine game? Used to have the Japan Bowl over in Tokyo. Can you imagine that happening? You bring it up. It's a good question, Pat. But those players, the ones that are worried about getting hurt in the bowl games, they'll go play in those All-Star games. They've got to get taped. What they don't understand is when you don't play in a game, NFL teams are looking at you and thinking, well, what's he going to do when he gets in the NFL? Look what George Pickens did. Wide receiver, played at Georgia, went to Hoover High School, was committed to Auburn for about a year, and then suddenly at the last minute made a business decision to go to Georgia. That guy's got problems with the Steelers. People doubt him. They doubt his devotion to the team. And that's a big deal. You do not want to have your teammates, your coaches, certainly the ownership of the team, doubting your mental toughness. That's just a no-no. I would be terrified if I were a player, if my teammates didn't trust me. Anybody that's in the huddle, you got to trust them, or else they need to be on the sidelines. Put somebody else out there that you can trust. I'm looking right now. We're going to see it Monday night. Get ready before you go to bed. There'll be a way too early top 25 for the 24 college football season. And, people, what do? They typically rank these teams out of the rearview mirror. They will come in and say, well, the teams that finish the strongest, they'll be back next year. The team that is interesting is what's going to happen with Iowa. They're getting rid of Kirk Ferentz's son, his offensive coordinator, and they're going to bring somebody in. If they can get an offense to go with the defense, and you got to get the skill players, I think they'll be a lot better. They won 10 games this year, but they're just basically riding on 4 bald tires when they played Tennessee in the bowl game Monday. Nico Iamaleava was fantastic. They were just it wasn't really close. I didn't see it. So, as a fan, I think the SEC is the strongest league, top to bottom. You're bringing in Texas, who was one of the 4 teams in the playoff. Oklahoma, they finished 11-2. They'll be coming in the league, but they're breaking in. Jackson Arnold is the quarterback who played in the bowl game, is the highest ranked recruit I think they've ever signed at Oklahoma, a quarterback. Dylan Gabriel essentially exercised free agency by going to Oregon. I think he's going to get a bunch of NIL money. And what I believe is going on with these players that are leaving early, they're leaving their school early and a 5th or 6th year senior, because they're not getting a lot of good feedback from NFL ownership, NFL scouts, coaches. And so they're saying, well, I can stay another year in college. I've already got my degree. I'll work on my master's. And they can get $1.5 million to $2 million of NIL. If they're a free agent, they're not going to get that much money. So that's what a lot of this is. Well, you think, they really love their school. Well, you want to believe that. But I think it's more about the NIL money that they're getting. And I think that money is coming in. You better be careful about having kids on your roster. You just read the comments from players on every team out there after some of these dreadful bowl performances. A lot of these teams were just roadkill, stage props in a play. It's embarrassing. And you've got older veteran players saying, we've got loose chains on this team. We need to get rid of them. We need to find out who really wants to be here. If I'm a coach and I'm investing my time and my life's passion into coaching a football team, I want to be surrounded by guys who actually want to be there. I don't want a bunch of guys that are just there to get there. Deion Sanders and his quote about everybody wants to get their bag. You'll get that in the NFL. This is college football. And you're seeing the model is not going to work. It is not going to work long term. It's not sustainable. You got fans running around with their hair on fire. They're buying the season tickets. Then they're paying for priority seating. Then you got to do NIL. Again, NIL's here, so you better make it work. And there's collectives at damn near every school. Some really good ones. And I've talked to people at some of these, and I love them. I think these guys that are doing it are great. But I just wonder, how long can you keep going at this pace? That's the question that you've got to ask. How long can you keep making your fans feel like they can't give enough? And you get these guys that are getting paid a lot of money that are bolting after a semester or a year. What DJ Uiagalelei, I think I got it right. He's a 5-star kid out of, I think, Concordia, California. Signs with Clemson. He's backing up Trevor Lawrence. When Trevor leaves, okay, he takes over in 21, and in 22 he's there. 23 he's out at Oregon State. Now he's going to transfer. He's already done it to Florida State. Did anybody see or hear Mike Norvell's comments in the locker room after Florida State's 63-3 loss to Georgia? I mean, I think he was saying, I'm really proud and I love you guys that are in this locker room, but all of y'all that quit, and because this is the result of participation trophies and coddling. These kids, most of them had never handled adversity. They never had any. And if they did have any, somebody took care of it. Mike Norvell will get – Florida State's not out. It's not a renegade brand. They're not ruined. They're going to be back next year. Look at their recruiting class. They're loading up a lot of talented players. Something – Mike Norvell, I'm glad he said what he said. I'm really glad, because you've got to call these people out for quitting on their teams, not showing up, because they'll do it when they get in the NFL. The NFL is going to pay a price for these kids coming in that have quit on their teams and transferred. They're going to want to be traded if they're not starting in the NFL immediately. And they're getting paid. But, I mean, look, you don't get as much money as you think in the NFL. Back prior to the 2011 April draft, Sam Bradford had a 4-year deal coming out of Oklahoma, number 1 pick, $78 million. The very next year, Heisman Trophy winner, okay, Cam Newton comes in, and he gets $22 million. Now, after 3 or 4 years, he was able to renegotiate his contract, and I think he got a good deal. But it is a different world than what you think. Free agents might get $550,000 to $750,000, some of them, but a lot of these guys are staying for a 6th year to get NIL money. They're not going to be drafted. The smartest guy in evaluating college football players, I I would have to say would be Jim Nagy of the Reese's Pieces Mobile Senior Bowl. They put out a list in the preseason of about 700 college football players on the Senior Bowl watch list. And they'll do that. That incentivizes these guys. Wow, I'm on the watch list. And look at the number. Look at the number of players that play in the Senior Bowl and go to be drafted and are on NFL rosters. They're really, really good numbers. And I can't look, if a guy's going to opt out of a good job, Pat, if a guy's going to opt out, quit on his team for a bowl game because he don't want to get hurt, I could see him saying, well, I don't want to go to the bowl games. What they don't understand is they need to go to both of them. If they're thinking right, the pro scouts are going to be there. They're going to be everywhere in Mobile the whole week. Jim Nagy's been on the show a number of times, and he said you'll see NFL team owners everywhere, coaches, scouts, player personnel directors, former NFL players, current NFL players. They come down. Mobile is the center of the football universe the week of the Senior Bowl. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, it is a really impressive thing to see. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break and be right back. Looking for Will Gunter to join us from the game over in Columbia, South Carolina. Rob Browne on this Thursday edition, a cold one from Memphis on Sidelines.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Yeah, curve everything else. Win, 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 win. Win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
All right, Rob Browne back here. Will Gunter has joined us. And Will, I know you get up. Okay, we're Central. You're Eastern time zone. So what time did you get up this morning to do your show? You go 6 to 9, so you're up about 4:30 or 5?
Well, I normally I get up at 5, but I'll be honest with you, New Year, and I have another business I run. And so I'm trying a resolution. I'm trying to be better. I'm now getting up at about 3:45, 4 to go do some administrative work that I have that would take. I like being done early in the afternoon. I mean, you see how I'm dressed right now. You see how I'm dressed. It's cold here. There's no golfing.
Yeah.
There's golfing or playing
It's cold
on the lake.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no playing on the lake or golfing, but those days will be coming. And so I want to go ahead and try and train myself. So I was up about 4 this morning to go to my other office and do some administrative work and just get that out of the way so that if I want to be done at 1 or 2 today, I can.
Well, yeah, and I know when I was interning for Channel 3 WREG in Memphis to finish college, They had me working on the morning show, and I was up at about, I think, 2:30, 2:45 to be down there by 4. And I did that for a while, help with the morning show. And boy, it's amazing how quickly the learning curve works. But getting up that early, it's kind of it's fun. It's like duck hunting. Hell, it's 31 degrees here right now, and it is very cold. But hell, it's wintertime. Hey, last night watching the Grizzlies game, John Morant's back, and it's that 25 game suspension. I don't think he'll ever forget that. Nor will Grizzlies fans. I think they were 5-20 in the games when he wasn't there. But it's basketball season we're flipping into right now. But we're going to be talking a lot about basketball with you because I know you are really, really one of the best basketball minds out there. But let's talk some college football right now. Let's look at South Carolina and how they finished the season, recruiting class, and what they're going to try to do in the portal to fill the needs that they have. And from what you've seen so far.
Yeah, it's funny because college football, we're watching this evolution of college football, and totally different subject, but how coaches now will handle bowl games. I've started calling after really watching over the weekend. I think coaches now have to handle bowl games like your spring practice. I mean, that's what it can be. We've always wanted spring practices to be against another opponent, and I say that to take you back. South Carolina not making a bowl game didn't give them the opportunity to play Lenora Sellers in place of Spencer Rattler and learn what he could. So that's a big thing for this program moving forward, because now you look around, you see Miller Moss at Southern Cal, obviously, guys like Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma getting their opportunities. You see other players, young players, they got opportunities to play in these bowl games as an audition. The win and loss doesn't matter. The win and loss is irrelevant. It's getting these young guys, these freshmen that didn't play much this year, that will play pretty pivotal roles in 2024, opportunities. And South Carolina missed that. So that's actually huge now. So, all right, you have to focus on recruiting. Well, the other part about not making a bowl is you don't keep your players on campus to have them practice, to work with them. All of a sudden, they get to go home and be around mom and dad and uncles and friends, and they go, I like being home. I miss being home. This is it's no fun being over in Columbia, South Carolina. And South Carolina's lost at least what we can see is 2 players, likely because they say they're homesick. One is Stone Blanton from Mississippi, who appears will likely be transferring to Mississippi State, and he was a starting linebacker. And then another one is Grayson Pup Howard, who was a top 200 player in last year's class in the 2022 class or 2023 class. And didn't start this year, but was going to play pivotal snaps this coming year. Well, you allowed those guys to go home and be around mom, dad, whomever else for the month of December, basically. And I think now some of those players, and this happens across the country. Well, why did so player X transfer? Well, they just got to be around mom and dad and family and home cooking and all those things that they're accustomed to, and go, man, I'd rather be here than 10 hours, 4 hours, what is it, away from home. So I think those are 2 things you've got to watch now moving forward, and why making a bowl game is so pivotal is keeping guys on your campus to have them practice, being able to see them in your facility every day, to be able to talk to them. Hey, you doing okay? You all right? Hey, good to see you, man. Get in the weight room. Go down to the nutritionist, get a good meal. But the bottom line is for South Carolina, now you got to replace those guys. And they did lose Mario Anderson to Memphis, a running back. Again, the thing we were shocked about, he's from the state of South Carolina, but we think that was more NIL related. Now, the good news is they replaced Mario Anderson with Rocket Sanders from Arkansas. And we'll see how that plays out. Again, I'm becoming kind of leery of the transfer portal. You might get a doctor. Lou Holtz used to say, you get these kids in, you might have a doctor. You might have someone who's going to end up in jail for 10 years. We don't know. We'll judge it in a few years. So you get these recruits, and you get both your high school recruits and your transfer portal. That's awesome. What do they do for you this coming season? How good is it? South Carolina lost a defensive end that I really like, Gilbert Edmond, to Florida State last year. And I thought that was a huge loss. Well, he's back in the portal already. He's in the portal, so it didn't work out at Florida State. So, again, what do you get when you bring these guys in? But obviously, right now, the big thing is looking for a backup quarterback. And, the thing that's interesting is South Carolina's pretty much committed to Lenora Sellers. They've committed to him. They basically said he's going to be the starter. So you got these kids coming in, and now if they pay attention to what's going on, they're going, well, wait a minute, I'm not competing for the starting job. You're pretty much already marking me down as a backup, and I don't want to go anywhere else and be a backup. So it's been very interesting with how they've handled everything. The recruiting class, we'll get into that in a minute, but yeah, that transfer portal, not making a bowl game, not being able to practice, not being able to get your guys who you're counting on, who didn't play much in 2023, but you're counting on for 2024. That really is a huge thing now.
It is. And you mentioned it, these quarterbacks, if they're not going to be the starter, they want to leave. Look at DJ Uiagalelei, Clemson, Oregon State, now to Florida State. What the hell does this kid want? I mean, you at some point, you got to spit or get off the pot. And I'm looking at the portal. You're right. I talked to some coaches at different schools in the last couple of weeks, which I always do, and you do too, off the record. So their names are not out there. But they said, look, you're not going to win taking these, guys from Group of 5 offensive linemen and bring them into the SEC if that's all you've got. You've got to go get them. And everybody in the SEC's goal probably will, I think it's fair to say, is to sign 5 offensive linemen in every recruiting class. That means with Texas and OU now on board, that's 80 offensive linemen out there. And there's maybe 20, 25 in a good year that are really good. But we're not developing elite offensive linemen. Everything is 7-on-7 camps. And so you better have a great offensive line coach wherever he is. Matt Luke, look, he went to Georgia for a couple of years, then got that balloon payment of 15 or 20 million, said, I'm out. I'm going to go do my thing for a while. I look for him to be pursued heavily because he's always going to want to coach, but you better have a great
he got hired at Clemson.
Okay, Matt Luke did?
He coached in their bowl game. He's hired. He is now at Clemson, yeah.
Okay, all right. So there we go. That was a rear view, man. But guys like that are not going to – coaches – watch what Tony Barnhart said on the show a couple of weeks ago. Players play and coaches coach. Perfect example of that. And you've just drawn and painted a brilliant picture of what's happening. You're not on campus for that bowl practice for those 20 days. Kids go home. They get distracted. Guys have been getting homesick, forever. You know that. And we all know that. But I think I'm surprised that Clemson or that South Carolina lost a running back, to Memphis because of NIL. That tells you.
All right, hold on. No.
Yeah.
So here's what happened. This is the story. He went to South Carolina. He really was deciding between South Carolina and the draft because running backs get used up, and I understood that.
Yeah.
He decides he's coming back to South Carolina. He agrees to an NIL deal for what I'm told was about $100,000. And South Carolina agreed to, all right, $100,000. That's a good chunk of change, but okay, all right, no problem. He gets an NIL agent, and the NIL agent says, you know what? You need $216,000. $216. That's your minimum. That's your bare minimum. And the reason that's your bare minimum is because that is what an NFL player makes that is on the practice squad. That is an NFL practice squad player's salary. So he after agreeing. Rob, it's the same thing. You wouldn't be happy with me if I said, yeah, I'm coming on. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to need $200,000 to come on. It's contract negotiation.
Yeah.
He goes back and says, well, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I need more money. And South Carolina said, all right, take care. Go get it. Yeah. You're not getting it here.
Yeah.
And so he had to transfer. And because, look, I'm not being mean to Memphis or anybody like that, but he's a starting running back in the SEC. What better place are you going to get? Are you going to get publicity to raise your NFL stock? I know the NFL will find you wherever you're at. Memphis has a nice history of putting guys in the NFL. But you're playing in front of 70, 80,000 people on Saturday. You're going to be televised on ESPN and ABC and the SEC network. And all of a sudden, you're going to leave South Carolina to go to Memphis. You leave South unless you're not good enough, unless you weren't playing. But he's a starter. He's going to be the starter. Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons. That was a very wild situation here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Memphis has like 6 running backs in the NFL right now, and I'm sure they threw that out there. But you're right. If the coaches, what I've heard is they really hate it when these players come in and it's let's make a deal. And they'll say, and you don't know if it's true or not, but they'll say, this school's offering me this much. Can you match that? And if not, the coaches, they can't get into that. They got to say, hit the road, man. We're done. I mean, Jim Tunney, the dean of NFL referees, has been on the show a number of times, and he was telling a story about the Packers. Vince Lombardi had a player on the roster, and he was negotiating his contract. He wanted $7,000 a year. And Lombardi and the Packers wouldn't budge a dollar above $6,500. The guy went and played somewhere else. That's, you have to, you can't, if you get into giving in, they're never going to stop. So I look at South Carolina, and they've got so many things going for them. Let's talk about that NIL collective that they have. I'm curious how much money they're bringing in. Are you hearing it's a lot? But this is the dilemma. How much can you pay these kids? I mean, at some point, this is unsustainable. The fan bases, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, you've got to give for season tickets a lot of money. Then if you want priority seating, you really got to pay up. And then they're going to hit you with NIL. The question is, are you giving more money to your school's NIL collective than you are to your own children?
Well, this is happening at South Carolina, and I'm going to use them as the example. You've had Juice Wells, who got paid a nice sum of money this past year, but got injured and didn't play, and collected all that money and is now bounced to Mississippi. And you've had other players across the country. And I think what you're going to get now is, especially as we go through this election year, we'll see what happens with the stock market and with the finances. I mean, I'm watching here first 3 days here, everybody talking about finances. And the reason I bring those things into college football is nobody wants to pay for a guy for 1 year. If I'm going to pay, why am I paying you for 1 year for you to play, and then you're going to play for somebody else? There's going to be a point where people go, I don't see my ROI on this. I don't. Where's my investment? People now, if you're getting it, if you're Georgia, if you're Alabama, now maybe if you're Texas and you're in the college football playoff, Michigan, Washington, Mississippi feels they're right there at, don't they? I mean, look at what they're doing in the portal.
Yep.
Mississippi has done a good job with their collective. Their fans are completely bought in. Lane Kiffin's fun and exciting, and he's tweeting pictures of his dog, and he's awesome. So what happened? The fan base rallies around and goes, "This is great! Yeah, what is it? I got $10, and my family needs to eat. Here's $8. We'll figure it out how to make it on 2. Whatever it is, we'll figure out." When players are leaving, and you're going, "Well, wait a minute! I just gave you $1,000, $100, $1,000, $5,000, and it's supposed to go to player X, but player X is now transferring. Why am I giving you that money? Why am I wasting that money? I'd rather take my family and go to Charleston here, or go to Biloxi, and I don't know where y'all go. I have no idea.
Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach.
That was one of my parents' 2 honeymoons. They spent 2 weeks over there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I'd rather take my kids and go do this or go do that. I was in West Palm Beach this past weekend. I'd rather go to. I think it ended up. A regular trip didn't even involve flight. It was like $2,100. I'd rather spend my $2,100 on that trip and have a good time than I would give it to the school who, then, all right, I don't know, they're going to give it to a kid who I like, and I hope he plays well. But at the end of next year, he might go, well, I need more money. And I'm like, I don't have it. That's going to be the breaking point, is when fans look at this and go, hey, where is my ROI?
Well, I can tell you this. In my other career, financial advisor, since 91, I've been doing it. You have money managers, growth and income, growth, value. You have small cap, mid cap. You evaluate the money managers on a quarterly basis. And if they are, performing below the benchmark quarter after quarter, you replace them. And because everyone is looking at return on investment. Okay. And that's exactly what's going to happen with NIL. I don't know. I haven't looked at a contract of NIL, but if it doesn't have teeth in there and say, you got to play in every game, you got to maintain a 2.75 GPA, and you've got to be a citizen in good standing. You can't get in trouble with the law or anything like that. There better be teeth in those things, because look at an NFL contract. Man, there's all kinds of verbiage in there. And you're right. That's why NIL is here for now, but the amount of money being thrown and all like that, look, if money can solve it, it's really not a problem. Ask Texas A&M. Look at that. Do you think they didn't spend a ton of money on NIL? Look what that got them. How many players in the portal? A ton of them. They don't have a culture.
Texas A&M is a really good one that you just used, because we heard all about whatever they spent on NIL, and a lot of those kids are gone. They're gone. That recruit, that incredible Warren Nolan's now down at Mississippi, and LT Overton's at Alabama now, and Denver Harris he's on his third school because he just left LSU. Yeah, that's A&M, and that's what I'm saying. And I know money is unlimited at Texas A&M, but even those people who have a lot of money, I think you said it, you don't get rich by spending foolishly.
No.
I've never met a person who made a lot of money and spent foolishly. I might be that person because I buy expensive tequila and tequila and bourbon. So maybe I'm that guy. Maybe that's why I don't have a beach house, is I buy $300 bottles of tequila, which is really stupid, but I do. But the truth is those people, you don't get rich and be like, I got an idea, let's spend excessively on something stupid that we don't get an ROI on.
Yeah, and that's you're right though. And Ben Troop and I talked about this, and he said, in the NFL, a lot of the rookies will come in and they just blow their money on things that you can see: clothes, houses, cars, expensive nights out in clubs. He said, that's stupid. And it is. And he goes, wealthy people, and I deal with them for a living, they buy things you can't see. They buy stocks, they buy bonds, they buy ETFs. They're looking for a return. The number one radio station that all of my clients listen to is WIIFM. What's in it for me? What are the tax implications? Okay. Do you know the 2024 tax scale? Do you know that? You better know it. It's financial literacy. Ohtani signed the 10-year, $700 million deal with the Dodgers. A lot of people are out there saying, why is he deferring $680 million of it, only taking $20 million for 10 years? Because his accountant, his tax advisor, must have told him, if he didn't know, the state of California has a 13.25% state income tax. So the minute this guy retires from the Dodgers or gets traded, he's going to probably go to Texas, to the Rangers, or Florida, or some state without an income tax. That's what that's all about. Because every time the Grizzlies play a game in Los Angeles or at Golden State, they get a paycheck for every game. They get clipped at 13.25. The Lakers love playing the Grizzlies. They love playing the Orlando Magic or the Dallas Mavericks. Those are states without an income tax.
Right.
And it's just, you're right. I'm telling you, look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It is right now, the highest it's been 37,821. It's pretty darn good. It's 37,513 right now.
Yeah, so you just had me click over. Look, because of doing the show, I don't look early in the morning.
Yeah, and I keep it running while I'm on the show. But that's where we are. The fans will look. It'll last a while. Remember when timeshares were a big deal, condos, and now all you hear is that guy that sounds like he smokes a carton of cigarettes every hour. I'm Chuck McDowell. We're gonna go out there, everybody. We're gonna sue them. They're screwing you. People knew what they were doing when they bought those timeshares. They all get selective amnesia later. But, I mean, you and I, everybody we know has been approached and hotboxed on buying a timeshare. But I'm just saying that NIL in its current state is unsustainable. And I think also, I'll make a wild prediction. Within a few years, a year or two, after all this coast-to-coast traveling, for the non-revenue sports, especially the Pac-12, the Big Ten merger, I think it's going to blow up. I think football is going to be a separate island, 65 superpower teams, And the other 68 teams will be their own division. They'll have their own national championship. And these non-revenue sports in the Pac-12, they'll go back. Arizona needs to be playing Arizona State or Oregon in baseball, not Arizona State at Rutgers on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday run. That's nuts. Doesn't make any sense. But the NCAA is they don't know what they're doing. I think they almost know that their days are numbered, but we cannot allow if you have a collective bargaining agreement, that's where you're going to get in trouble with NIL. But Mike Norvell, you heard his comments after the Florida State game, getting beat 63-3 by Georgia. He is mad as hell. 31 players on that team quit. You know why? They didn't know how to handle adversity because their parents had taken care of all the problems that got in their way all through their lives. And shame on them because those kids don't have a clue about what's coming their way. Wait till they have kids, a mortgage to pay, car notes to pay, bills to pay. Then what are they going to do? Good luck.
Well, it was 19 opt-outs and 12 injuries. Am I right on that? I believe I'm right on that. 19. It wasn't 31 opt-outs. It was 31 guys missing. I thought it was 33 to be honest, but I thought it was 19 guys opt-out. Look, that's a business decision. I mean, we all have to make business decisions. You look at a guy like Jared Verse, and I can't blame him. I mean, this is, again, coaches are going to have to adjust for these bowl games. It is now your spring game. I know you don't get to have it with the early enrollees, so to speak, but that's your spring game. You better treat it like a spring game. Most fan bases don't care if you win or lose. Don't get embarrassed. And Florida State got embarrassed, but most fan bases won't care. They want to go to the nice destination and have a good time, enjoy. So if you live in the North, I live in South Carolina. Again, look how I'm dressed. I was in West Palm, not for a bowl game, but I'd have loved to have been in Miami. I'd have loved to have been as a fan in Tampa, somewhere warm. Matter of fact, I'd love for them to bring back the Bahamas Bowl and have the SEC play, the Big 12. That'll be a well-attended bowl game, I promise you.
Yeah.
Or play the Big 10. But the point being is, I can't blame those guys for that because you have to make a decision if you're going to the NFL. Now, what I think is going to be interesting, Rob, is when do we see the first sophomore quarterback? The first sophomore quarterback who's coming back with his team who says, this game's meaningless. I'm going to be the starter next year. I don't want to get injured in this bowl game and have to rehab for 9 months and potentially lose my starting job. Not because he can go to the NFL, not because he wants to transfer, because he just looks at the bowl game as meaningless. And again, if I'm a coach, I go, that's fine. That's fine. Sit out. Let me play the backup. Now, the backup might play so good he takes your spot. Just FYI. But I understand what you're doing. Allow us to build depth. I think I listen to Kirby Smart and I listen to Mike Norvell, and they're putting it on the NCAA. I think it's time coaches take a little accountability and say, I've got to readjust how I'm going to coach and train for this one game that quite frankly, the score is meaningless. It's about the practice. We talked this morning about recruiting rankings and the game that happened last night down in Orlando, the Under Armour All-American game. And I used to do this. Those games are meaningless. We judged kids based off on the week of practice, how that week of practice went. That's how we came up with who's good at an all-star, a high school all-star game. They'll have the Army game this weekend. The game was irrelevant. It was about who was good during the week of practice. So it's kind of going back to the bowl game. Coaches need to look at it and go, hey, who's good in the practices? Who should I play to get a look at? Maybe I want to try a 5 wide receiver set in this bowl game. This is an interesting take that I'm getting more and more into as I watch these coaches talk. It's on the coaches to change. It's on the coaches to see how, because you don't have kids. When the first kid opts out of the Michigan-Ohio State game or the South Carolina-Clemson game or the Mississippi State, Auburn, Alabama, now we legitimately have a problem because that's a meaningful game. When kids are opting out of a bowl game, I'm okay with that. It's on coaches to change how you adjust for bowl games, because we're going to get a college football playoff where there's more meaningful games. These bowl games, view it as a spring practice, but without being able to stand on the field or stop the play or do whatever. It's a game. This is what we've always wanted for spring games. You've got them. in most times, tropical destinations, unless you were in Boston last week or New York.
Yeah.
Awful places for a bowl game.
All right. You're making some good points, but let's go back to something you said a few minutes ago. The cost of travel, the tickets, food. Then make the bowl games free. Don't charge people for tickets. Give away free hotel rooms. Subsidize it all. Just the hell with it. See, I'm not attacking you, Will. You know that I love you. I'm just saying.
My argument of that is, look, I pick and choose my vacations. This year I'm going on June I'm going on a cruise. I bought Atlanta Braves tickets this year. We're in a Braves group. We're going to Braves games. I pick and choose my destinations. When I was in my 20s and I didn't have kids, I went to almost every South Carolina football game. The only trip I've never made was to Arkansas. That was my choice. Nobody's forcing you to go to these bowl games, and nobody's forcing you to fly. Just like I learned an important lesson 4 days ago. Do not drive anywhere during New Year's. Do not drive anywhere. It took 10 and a half hours, and it should be an 8-hour drive. It took 10 and a half hours on the 29th to drive from Lexington, South Carolina to West Palm Beach. That was a stupid decision, and I'm the only person to blame for that. I should have flown because 10 and a half hours in a car when you're stopped on the interstate is a long time. So I guess I understand what you're saying about making the bowl games free, but man, don't go.
But here's the thing about college. It's so personal. I've got 4 kids now, 2 boys, 2 girls. I mean, if somebody says your team's terrible, they suck or whatever, it's like saying you got ugly kids or fat kids. College is so much more personal than the NFL. It is. And the pride. I mean, what do they call South Carolina? I know Alabama has Tide Pride. Auburn has Tigers Unlimited. What do they call that arm, the athletic fundraising arm at South Carolina?
This is changing. Get back to me on that in a few weeks. I don't know what I can share and what I can't. I just know it's evolving and it's changing, and I'm waiting on the announcement because I'll give you a perfect example. The Clemson, it's Clemson. It's called IPTAY.
IPTAY. Oh yeah.
I think it's I pay 10 a year.
Something. Yes. 1934 it started.
South Carolina's is about to evolve and change, and quite frankly, so to answer your question, right now it's the Gamecock Club, but that's about to change. I think by the end of the month.
Okay. So what I'm saying though about that, when you go to a bowl game, a lot of it is the tickets, the fans. It's an opportunity for the different fundraising arms to mingle with the fans, and there's a lot that goes on at these bowl games, and they're recruiting trips for fans to become fundraisers or higher level fundraisers. That's what these things are for, and you got to make the bowl games matter. There are proposals that say, look, I mean, if they want to be treated like in the business world, let's quit making the rules like this is some elementary school picnic. Start saying, okay, in the real world, you get $1 million to move from firm A to firm B. You're going to have a 5-year contract. Okay. You leave after the first year. You owe $800,000 to that because you get all that money up front. Let's put those kind of teeth in those contracts. That'll keep these people from bouncing around from school to school. Right now, everybody's scared. They don't want to offend anybody. They want to hurt anybody's little feelings. But that's the problem. You've got to hold people accountable. I mean, again, dealing with wealthy people, they're not stupid. And again, we've never had a wealthy family, my team, ever say, okay, Will is 18. We trust him. We're going to give him $10 million because we've got it to give. We're going to give our 19-year-old daughter $20 million and our 20-year-old son $30 million. They don't do it. You do. There are 2 trusts that we always see the best attorneys will recommend. An incentive-based trust, which is for every dollar you earn from your job, you get $1 from the trust. The second one is age-banded. So at age 25 and 30 and 35, the money is dispersed. I mean, that's just, you have to do it that way. The first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys. That's how wealth works. You're now giving 17 and 18-year-old kids. I watched that Lama Leva guy for Tennessee. If it's true that he got $8 million? I mean, did you see there was 25 or 30 people around him after the game? Are they all living vicariously through him? I mean, look what Vince Young did. Remember, it ruined his NFL career because he stopped lending money to family members and friends, and they all cut him off. And he's like, well, my God, it's my money. Trent Richardson, remember that? 23 Netflix accounts were open. He goes, who are these people?
But you would agree. I mean, like, I don't blame the kids for this. Like, the kids are, you're right. Now, and that comes back to who's willing to pay what. We saw that back in the day with SMU. And, oh, boy, SMU's coming back into real SMU's coming back into real college football.
Yes, they are.
Look at what's about to happen now. I understand what you're saying, but that's the way it is. These kids, look, I'm not going to even pretend I'm a good radio host, but if
you're great, I think you're fantastic.
If Miami or Charlotte or New York calls and says, "Hey, I want to give you $5 million to come to," if they, stupid, like it amazes me. It amazes me, and nothing against them. Whether I like them or not is irrelevant. It amazes me the sums of money that I see, like Stephen A. Smith get or Colin Cowherd for talking on radio, for making points. And kind of going back to what you were talking about in relation to who can govern this. And I know Mike Leach years ago has a great soliloquy. I don't know, a rant. I don't. Mike Leach, did he ever rant? I don't know. Like his always made sense.
Yes.
And I think it was Dabo or somebody recently in December made a point. Rob Browne would not have me on if I was Bill Gunter, the oyster collector, to talk football, because I would have no knowledge. I'd have great knowledge of collecting oysters and what all the great oysters are up and down the Eastern Seaboard, but that doesn't fit what you're trying to talk about. We have people trying to make rules for college football that don't understand the game. And I agree with what Dabo said and what Mike Leach said years ago. You want to fix this problem. Let's stop going to people who've either never played a down, who have never been in an athletic department, who have never tried to coach peewee football, and let's let the Nick Sabans and the Dabo Sweeneys and the Shane Beamers and the Hugh Freezes of the world, the guys who have to deal with this on a day in, day out basis, who make a lot of money but deal with it. Let them try and figure this out. That is going back to your point about football breaking off and being its own governing body. We will get to that. I hope it's a lot sooner than later, but we will get to that.
Yeah, because and great points, Will. And you are a great radio host. You're a great podcast host. You're great because you're well versed in a lot of topics. And hell, I love oysters. My wife likes them raw. I like them baked. I like oysters Rockefeller. We sit there at the Floribama every time we're at Orange Beach, and I'll get oysters of five different kinds. And Audrey's like, I only like them, raw oysters. But it would be a fun conversation. But I'll just say this too. You're right. You want financial advisors, people who are trained and understand financial markets and trends and moving averages to be your investment advisors. You don't want people that don't have a clue about it. You're right. And
right.
So
you think that bar that I go to at LJ's, I'm not asking those people for finance. They're all worth a lot. There's a lot of people that are worth a lot of money, but they didn't get money. They had the right person in charge.
Yeah. What days can we get you as a regular from LJ's Bar and Grill? I love it when you're there. That's a cool place.
Normally after 9:30 Friday. I could have done it today. We had stuff I had to finish here at 9:30.
Give me your schedule on LJ's Bar and Grill. I love it when you do it there because I love these places like Blue Jays over in Grubbs, Arkansas. Unbelievable breakfast, lunch, dinner. Love places like that. So, Will, when you're looking at it, and I know you got a big day ahead of you, we're going to be joined by John Hartwell and Matt Dean here in just a minute at the break. But we got to get football people. You're right. Charlie Baker, who's the head of the NCAA now, he was former governor of Massachusetts. The one thing, though, senators and congressmen, they usually don't have a clue about balancing a budget. A governor, there's a constitutional mandate, has to balance the budget. Governors are hands-on. I mean, lieutenant governors are really hands-on. You'll see them. I mean, they've got to be on top of it. I agree with you. Let's get Rick Neuheisel, get him involved as being commissioner. I've asked him that, and he's like, yeah, I'd do it. I love that guy. He He's got a law degree. He's very smart, but he also knows how petty they can be. Remember, they went after him for betting in an office pool on some game, and it was nothing. And they just went after him. We need people that understand the game, and also like Dabo's saying, and Shane Beamer. I mean, come on. Well, let's get Frank Beamer. Let's get Shane's dad. Think that guy doesn't know about football?
We did this after Florida State got left out that Monday or whatever, and we talked about people, and I say realistic, like Nick Saban would be up there, but he's coaching. Can't use him. We need people that understand the game to run the game. So we didn't mention Neuheisel, but that's a really good one. We mentioned Frank Beamer. We mentioned Bob Stoops. We mentioned Chris Peterson, who was at Washington and did a lot of great things for Washington and took them. We mentioned those three, and it was kind of like, who's your president, who's your vice president, who's your secretary, and we all agreed, Bob Stoops should be the president. That guy understands, and I think he's also running a tequila company, which is another. I was like, hey, vote for that guy. But but then you have Frank Beamer maybe behind that, and then you have Chris Peterson. We were trying to think of coaches who got out early but loved the game. And another one we were throwing around who's around, and just Philip Fulmer's a guy. You tell me Philip Fulmer, like, there's 4 guys right there that could step in and handle college football and know the nuances. And those 4 guys also, you talk about putting a committee together, and this is what we're doing, a committee to determine a playoff. Why do we got some people who, why do we have athletic directors from schools on their conferences? Put guys in there that have played. Tyrone Willingham, I think, was a part of it at one point. They don't have to be successful head coaches, by the way. Just they put people who have been in locker rooms, who have seen football, who were considered smart enough to run their own football program.
I totally agree with you. And I'm texting Rick Neuheisel right now. I want to get him on the show. Hopefully he can come on Saturday for the roundtable. But you've got to have people that understand how dumb these decisions are and the effects that they have. And you're right. I mean, your show, you do a 3-hour show Monday through Friday, all over South Carolina. I think you're in Florence. You're in Myrtle Beach. You're in Columbia, 107.5 The Game. It's a great show. You really know, you get it. I mean, you're making points about what college football needs, but you got 85 scholarships, and that tilts everything because of Title IX. Hell, nothing against women, but you better follow the money trail. Okay. There are 91 sports that have NCAA championships. The big money maker, obviously, for their budget, for 95% of their budget, comes from March Madness. Remember, college football playoff, that $450 million they make off the 14 playoff, that's not part of the NCAA. Separate deal. So 91 sports, March Madness, the men's basketball tournament's the big money maker. You know what number 2 is? The College World Series. And then way off in the distant wilderness are all the other sports. Okay? So we need to, put it this way. I'm not going to recommend money managers that consistently lose their ass. Never would I do that. Yet the NCAA forces money. I mean, as much as we love different sports, you spend millions on them and they still lose money. In the business world, that gets you fired, especially if you're a publicly traded company. You have shareholders. The number one thing we've got to have is accountability. 3 things you got to have to be successful with a mission. Responsibility, that defines what are you responsible for? Number 2 is authority. That's the authority to make decisions. And number 3 is accountability. You and I and anybody that has a business, our shows are business. We have accountability. That's what we got to remember. And you're making great points. I love it. And I'm telling you, you're right on point with what you're saying. If we don't soon have a, come to Jesus about the people that are running the NCAA, and we start holding them accountable, then we need to just go off on our own. football a separate island, and then everything else, fights for the scraps from Longshank's table, I guess. Is that about fair? I've seen Braveheart more than once.
Yeah, we can continue this conversation. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Look, it goes round and round. I think a lot of people have great ideas. It's a matter of getting them put in, getting them implemented, and move. We are entering, Rob, however you want to look at it, Monday night at about midnight or Tuesday morning, the new era of college football will begin with UCLA and Oregon and Southern Cal and all that going to the Big Ten, the SEC acquiring Oklahoma and Texas, whatever happens with Washington State and Oregon State. And even when you look at the television contracts, we will start a brand new era of college football and move on from what was a great era. It was a lot of fun, but that's Ice Age now. That's Ice Age. We're in the new era now.
Yeah, and you know what? The free market will work it out. And I absolutely believe this, that better days are ahead. It's always darkest before dawn. That's kind of where we are right now when you look at a lot of the stuff, but we'll figure it out. We'll let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work. And as always, love having you come on the show. Appreciate you going a little bit long today. But when you're making as many great points as you are, we could have you on all day and still wouldn't be enough time. But I really appreciate you taking time because you've been up since what, 3:30 this morning?
Or this first day we tried it. I'm running right now. I feel good. It's like
you're bouncing off the walls. You're like me.
After I got to do something, I'm going to crash. But yeah, Twitter @Will WIL Gunter GUNTER. And as always, if you ever want to listen in, you can download our app on your smartphone, your smart device. Go to your app store and download 107.5 The Game. You can listen to us in Memphis or in Tuscaloosa or in Houston, Texas, or we've had people call in from South Africa and Germany as well. So wherever you can take us all over the world, if you ever want to hear. I will admit, I'm far more serious on this program, why I enjoy coming on, than I am. This morning, we spent about 45 minutes talking about what kind of drink you would throw on somebody like David Tepper did there for the Panthers. It was more of a discussion. What drink is the worst to have thrown on you? I think we settled on either red wine or a Bloody Mary with all the garnishments.
And also next time we'll have a discussion about oysters. Get ready for it, okay?
I can do that. We're gearing up for this weekend, so yeah, that sounds great.
All right, we'll do it. We'll take care, man. Thank you. Go Gamecocks. We'll take a quick break. Be right back with Coach Matt Dean after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back with Coach Matt Dean, and that was a really cool discussion that we had with Will Gunter from the Game over in Columbia, South Carolina, and a lot of good points were brought up about just talking with Will about what's going on in college athletics and where we are. How much is too much to spend on NIL collectives and what have you? Are you giving more money to your school's NIL collective than you are to your own children, or tithing to your church? Think about that. That's something to think about. And red flags in my business outside of this show are if you ever have an account with someone who's taking a lot of cash advances from a casino. It's like, oh, watch out, man. That may not be able to cover that trade they just made. Oh, just think about it. There's just things that you look at. Matt Dean, you've been on with us already this week. It's been fun. College football championship coming up Monday night, Michigan and Washington. And we're going to be getting into a lot of college basketball. Conference play starts this weekend around the country, and there are going to be a lot of good games. You've seen some basketball up to this point. We're going to get to that when John Hartwell joins us here in a minute. But let's get back to the point was made up, and I think Rick Neuheisel would be a great commissioner for college football. I'm not big into committees and meetings where you have all these meetings about the meeting coming up, because that's what a lot of administrators love to do. I like doers. Let's take the chairs out of the room at the table if we have a board meeting, and let's raise the table, have a round table where everybody's got to stand. Instead of taking 2 or 3 hours with a bunch of blowhards making empty promises, you'll get stuff done in 10 minutes or less. Let's get started on this. College football. Why not put college football on a separate island by itself and then divide up? You could bring sports like wrestling back. You could bring a lot of sports back that went the way of the ivory-billed woodpecker, which has been extinct for more than 70 years, despite the attempts by some clowns in Arkansas to think that it was in the White River. That was a pileated woodpecker, I might add. But look, why not do that? You know, you've heard it. You've been to these meetings before. You're not an administrator. You may have been, you've been an AD. You're an associate AD now, but you're not an administrative type. You're a doer. You're a guy that gets his stuff done.
Well, good morning, Rob. We've talked about this quite a few times. You know my opinion. I believe in the Chip Kellys of the world. I think Rick Neuheisel's an idea, Rob. I mean, that would be a tremendous commissioner of this new league we're forming. But, you know, from a money standpoint, football is sustainable by itself. It's not like and let's not forget, basketball has a huge contract. Okay, their contract for March Madness sustains the whole entity. Okay, of Division III championships. 3% of their budget sustains Division III championships. It's really an amazing number. So when I look at this, and by the way, you mentioned wrestling. Wrestling's alive and well in the Big Ten. Go talk to Penn State about wrestling. I mean, there are a lot of schools. My alma mater, Drake University, when I got to school there in '85, Rob, when I was a freshman, we were 17th in the country in wrestling. By the time I graduated, we had dropped wrestling. And that's I had guys across the hall that were 158, 150 pounders, man. They were tough as nails. We wouldn't mess with them.
Yeah. Oh, hell no.
We dropped the sport at Drake, and we were top 20 in the country. If you want to look at profile, it was our highest ranking sport in the whole athletic department. Okay. But through a lot of things that were going on from a money standpoint, wrestling, like you mentioned, was one of the ones that fell at a lot of places. I think the biggest thing is we have to have an identity and know who we are. We are kidding ourselves if we think a certain fix is taking 4 Pac-12 schools and moving into the Big Ten. Now, it may help from a TV standpoint. It may help from a recruiting standpoint, but that's just the sport of football. So what we have to do in the long term is decide what our 4 conferences are going to be, okay, what our playoff structure is going to be. I mean, if you have 64 and you go to 16, there's 4 in each power, and it does it. You cross-pollinate, and it's pretty simple math, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1, right? You start off with the Sweet 16. You probably don't have to have a need anymore for conference championships, so you pick up that weekend as your Sweet 16 games, right?
Yeah.
And then you allow the traditional sports to play regionally in the conferences they were supposed to design to play in.
Yeah.
I mean, now, the confusing part to me, Rob, is the money distribution, right? The money distribution. If we were to do this, what happens to the bowl system? Because you have your national championship playoff format, Rob, in one basket. Do you create a new situation for bowl games where the people who don't make it can get bowl incentives or bonuses, whatever you want, so we don't have everybody just leave after the Sweet 16 is determined. I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's fixable, but there's a lot of frustration. You know, we talked with Ben Troop yesterday. It was a really great conversation.
Yeah.
I left that conversation thinking, man, Ben should be on the national stage somehow too.
Yeah.
Because he's got that player perspective, right? That we're always and Ben's a young guy. I mean, he's not old by any standards, but he's not inexperienced either. So how do we allow for those 48 teams that don't make it? Those fan bases still want to have some bowl games. I don't care what you say. And like the point there that Rob Anders is making, their local fundraiser made for TV events. I mean, I don't want them to go away. I want to improve them and improve the quality of them. But I do think Ben was right yesterday, Rob. The Florida State-Georgia game was an anomaly. I mean, that's not the norm. We do kind of, and we do this everywhere, Rob. We hone in on a situation where there were a lot of opt-outs. I was talking to my wife about this last night. You know, Georgia had a lot of opt-outs too, Rob. It wasn't just Florida State, but Georgia's culture is so good. And Kirby was so mad after that loss, he convinced those guys the only thing we got to do is we got to go ahead and win the next game. And they certainly did that. So I've always liked the commissioner idea, Rob. I've liked the separation of Power 5 and Group of 5. How can we make the other Group of 5, 64 playoff with 16, a more fundable project with TV contracts? Is that possible? Is that part of the responsibility? Do we have a czar for Power 5 and a czar for Group of 5, whatever you want to call it, Rob? Yeah. There's money to be had in both functions because both areas have tremendous fan bases, right?
Yep.
That's just my initial thoughts. I kind of rambled there, Rob. I apologize.
No, not at all. I you think about this too. I remember back we had appointed all these. They called them czars. In America, we don't do czars.
No, we don't.
That I hate that term. And that was during, I guess Bush's administration. You know, the czar for that. We don't do czars in America. We're better than that.
Yeah.
And I hate the term commissioner, and really because I think of bureaucracy and politics, which leads to buttloads of paperwork, and I hate paperwork.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in the tree conservation program. You know, let's save the trees, less paperwork. Just, people just, I said I'm going to do it and I'll do it. Your words got to mean something. The more paperwork there is, the more, problems you have. But I think that if we had someone like a Rick Neuheisel, it would so much better. I think he'd be a great choice. But we're going to see, I'm predicting it now, you're going to see the Pac-12, the Big Ten, all of this mess. These schools, they're going to, after the first year or two of travel, it's not going to, I don't think it'll take more than a year. There's going to be so much hell raised about student athletes going across the country for volleyball and softball and baseball. It's just a wear and tear. Football, it's a once a week deal, but you're not going across the country every week. I mean, tell me, let's be honest, which I always believe you should be honest, but you have to be. When Oregon and Washington play, they're going to love it. It's going to be a sentimental old Pac-12 rivalry. Southern Cal and UCLA. When they're out there, they're still going to feel like they're in the Pac-12. It's still, at least, but football can be a national sport again because you're going to have 7 or 8 home games a year.
Yeah, you're right.
So Southern Cal and UCLA will have to make at least 4 trips, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do their schedule. How many times they're going to have to go across the country, but it's going to be a problem. It's just going to be a pain in the ass. That's what it's going to be. And I think that the conference that you've got to worry about. I want to ask you, the ACC, Florida State. Mike Norvell's mad as hell. He had 33 guys. I don't know, 19 or 20 guys quit on the team. Maybe there were a dozen injuries, and you saw. I'm sure you watched his comments from the locker room after the Georgia loss. He's mad as hell. But he was saying to those players in that locker room, I love you and I'm proud of you because you hung in here and you stuck it out. And I think the reason why so many guys quit is because so many parents today think they're doing their child a favor every time they get in trouble by walking them through adversity. You're not helping your kid. I have never seen, we got 5 bald eagles over in Parkin right around the farm. 5 bald eagles. They nest over here. They love the fish and they love the ducks and geese. The bald eagle will eat about 1 snow goose a day. They're vicious. I've never seen a mother eagle chase down a baby bird once they fly out of that nest. It does not happen. That's why we got the problems that we do. These kids, they don't get their way as a starter, and they throw a hissy fit. But you know where they learned that? When they were a kid, and mommy and daddy immediately ran in the coach's office and demanded to know why Junior wasn't the star. You can't do that. You're not helping them. And so that's why I feel so good, because there's only so much of this crap people are going to take. And they'll fix it. Now, got to ask you a question. Tell me what's going to happen with the offensive coordinator decision at Iowa, who they're bringing in. Because if they get an offense to go with that defense, and they develop players so well at Iowa, how good could Iowa be? Because James Franklin is now 3-18 against top 10 opponents since he's been the head football coach at Penn State. And his litany of excuses after Ole Miss beat them 38-25 Saturday over in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I'd be embarrassed. He ought to be embarrassed for making those excuses. Your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of friends in the Big Ten that feel the same way you do about him and their program. You go through their numbers, Rob, and they have a ton of 4 stars and 5 stars, and they place a lot of people in the NFL.
Yes.
They really do. And, it was almost like a setup question. I don't know if you watched the broadcast. Right before the game started, the reporter had kind of tossed him a softball like, how are you going to defend this really talented Ole Miss defense, when you got a couple opt-outs in your secondary? And he's like, no, we're confident in them, and they're prepared for it. Next man up philosophy, whatever. It was a great answer, I thought. Okay. Yeah. Then we're going to go fast forward to post game, like you said, after they got their tail whooped, and it was like, woe is me, excuse after excuse. Well, in your pregame, you were confident that you're going to whip their tail. You just got out coached. Your team got outplayed. And to Ole Miss's credit, we talked about this briefly. The last thing I said when you brought Yancey on yesterday, Ole Miss, with their transfer portal commitments, with who they got coming back, and at the skill positions, and their defense keeps getting better every year with Lane Kiffin. And he's arguably one of the top 3 or 4 play callers, Rob, in this whole thing we call college football. They got whooped by a team that, honestly, Ole Miss in their bowl game looked Michigan worthy. I mean, they could have lined up with Michigan on Saturday, Rob. I believe so. Or whatever, Monday, whenever that game was played. Yeah. It's kind of confusing when you have games on Monday and we talk about Saturday. But my opinion, like going back to the Iowa situation, if you watch the tape in 2019 in the Halliday Bowl, okay, Iowa played a USC team that had multiple draft choices that I think was a 9-win team. Iowa became a 10-win team after beating them. They beat them like Rob, they beat him by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I watched a Big Ten Iowa Classic on that game a couple weeks ago. Iowa had speed on the perimeter.
What year was this again?
2019. So this is 4 years ago. Iowa has not always been this bad on offense. I just want you to know this. And I've told you this the last 2-3 years when I joined the show, that we have had some issues at quarterback. Tyler Lindenbaum, who just made the Pro Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens, was a star center for us that left 2 years ago. Yeah. And after Tyler left, our offensive line has taken a step back. And to speak in coach terms, Rob, part of Iowa's problem is it's really hard to run the football when there's 7 or 8 in the box saying, we're going to bring the safety up, challenging us to throw the football when our quarterback situation has been that bad. And I don't want to put it on one single player, because I think, as someone who has developed players my whole career, why is the offensive coordinator not schemed us out of some of this stuff, right? Yeah. We've not done well. It's when people think your quarterback play is bad, it's hard to go out and recruit 4- and 5-star wide receivers. You can't do it at Iowa anyway, right? Part of the reason we're tight end U is because you can develop a 2- or 3-star tight end and make him a pro football player. You try to develop an outside receiver, you need 4 3s for that, Rob. Okay, let's be honest. You need 4 3 40s for guys that are going to run down the field and beat corners. So, we have no separation of wide receivers. We need a change in philosophy. The name I'm hearing, Rob, that I would be excited about is the former coach of Wisconsin, Paul Chryst. People may not know Paul Chryst. Paul Chryst was a former quarterback at Wisconsin as a player. I think he played for Barry Alvarez. Very successful head coach for the Badgers. And like a lot of things in life, it ran its course, Rob. They went a different direction a couple years ago. They went with Luke Fickell. And Paul has been an analyst. I think Paul was an analyst this year for Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And Paul Chryst, I think, would be a tremendous hire because him and Kirk have a relationship, I think, through the Barry Alvarez connection. I don't know if you realize this, Rob, but Barry Alvarez used to be a part of Hayden Fry's staff in the 80s. And then he went on to become the head coach of Wisconsin. So Kirk's going to hire –
He was Holtz at Notre Dame too, wasn't he?
That's right. He's going to hire someone that he trusts. There's also another quarterback named Drew Tate that played for Kirk that's at Northern Iowa as an offensive quarterbacks or OC there. It's going to be someone I think he trusts her in the family. I think Iowa's offense will get better next year if Cade McNamara comes back healthy. If you look at the first 4 games before Cade got hurt, we were moving the football. But then again, Luke Lachey, our All-American tight end, got hurt game 4. Eric All, who we transferred from Michigan at tight end, a great player, got hurt, and our quarterback went down. So a lot of people don't realize that Iowa was not always as bad on offense. That's all I'm saying. So I think it's fixable, Rob. Some of it's personnel. Lachey's coming back for a 5th year. The tight end that got hurt. McNamara's coming back. I heard this last night from my son. He sent me this off of the X. Ty Thompson, the 5-star at Oregon backup quarterback who's in the portal, is visiting Iowa this weekend. So that would be an interesting addition if they could get a portal quarterback to go along with Cade McNamara.
Well, you got the portal quarterbacks. There are a lot of them out there,
right?
But when does I thought the window closed January 5th, because these kids have got to be able to enroll at school so they can go through spring semester and spring practice. So that's something. I mean, I would definitely say, but I don't think it's got to worse.
This weekend in Oregon, and so remember, everybody's calendar semester is a little different. Some people are on semester, some people are on tries, some people have a jam.
Well, Ole Miss has got the deal, the Duck Hunter's dream. They don't go back till like January 24th.
Right. So
because they do that mini semester. Yeah, they do a 2-week mini semester at Ole Miss. So we got some guys that kids are at Ole Miss, and man, they love it because they can hunt and they get off till the 24th, unless they're doing the mini semester, a semester's worth of classes in 2 weeks, the condensed compact version. I'll tell you right now where we're going in college athletics. We're going to see, and I'm not going to be surprised if we don't start seeing private venture capital aggressive to fund athletic programs. Because the bottom line is, my brother-in-law told me after 26 years in the Marine Corps, he said, I've never gotten anything for free from the government that I didn't pay for. That's just how it works. We better be careful. Do not think Congress can fix NIL and all this stuff. They can't. What more proof do you need than to watch the nightly news and look at that bunch of imbeciles? They don't know come here from Sikkim. So put them out of the thing. Tommy Tuberville, I mean, I love it. But he could do some things, but he'd have to make compromises. And typically, let's be honest, compromise is merely the victory of cowards. And we can't all be waiting around, to borrow the line from the movie Braveheart, when William Wallace, who, by the way, was a noble. He was not a commoner. He was a noble who fought for the commoner. That's what made him such a beloved figure. And his organs are still in the castle there in Edinburgh to this day. But, he said, come fight with me and unite the clans of Scotland to Sir Robert the Bruce. He said, if not, the English will just come and they'll burn us out. He said, but you're all sitting around drinking and eating at the table, waiting for land and titles and nobility, and waiting for scraps to fall from Longshank's table. So you got to decide, what are you going to do? We got to decide, and we're deciding. The fans are already making up their minds. Matt, we're going to get into this discussion in the next segment. I think John Hartwell has been reassigned to the weather station at the Arctic Circle. He's out this morning and hadn't heard from him. Hope everything's okay. But I know as an AD, he could have a meeting pop
Absolutely.
up. But love having him on, part of the 1-2 punch. But when we get back, we're going to talk a lot more about college athletics, where we're going, the quarterbacks that are out there, money that's being asked for. And I really think a small, nimble team of people like yourself, Rick Neuheisel, would be ideal for fixing problems, because your student athletes who are now, I don't even like to use the word administrator. I don't like that term, because I think of bureaucracy and committee meetings. And I think of, honestly, I think of a lot of paperwork. I'm not a fan of paperwork. All right, we're going to take a quick break. I want to say the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road, South Haven, Mississippi, open Monday through Saturday, okay? 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sundays open from 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. They have nutritionists, healthcare specialists, probiotics, energy gels like Goo. They've also got the shot blocks, which are great. Take care of yourself, people. You got one trip to the plate. You better make it count. The Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi, and also soon to come early March in Oxford, Mississippi as well. We'll be right back on Sidelines.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back with Matt Dean, the scholar, Drake University Bulldogs in Des Moines, Iowa, home of the Des Moines River and the Raccoon River. No one ever talks about that river. Des Moines, one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to in my life. It's really a cool city, but God, is it clean. I love the state of Iowa. That's where I first started pheasant hunting in Mount Ayr, Iowa, which is south of Des Moines. Rolling hills up there. God, the people up there are awesome. They got something that they're called switchgrass. This is 8-10 foot tall grass. You don't cut it. It just turns into switchgrass. And you walk in there for hours on end, mile after mile, jumping up pheasants. Rooster! It's beautiful. Love it. Biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. Corn fed, I might add. But contrary to what everybody thinks, Nebraska or Iowa, the number one corn producing state in America is Illinois. Get yourself a new map, but it's Illinois. They have ginormous deer up there as well. Hey, look, it's cold outside. You need gear for it. Go to Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. I absolutely love this store. Every time you go in there, it looks different. And Audrey and I go in there a lot. They're the second largest Filson dealer in the southeastern United States. They have Filson luggage, Filson waterfowl jackets, Filson jackets, the 10 cloth pants, the sweaters, the vest, the down jackets, the full length down jackets. They've got the Filson down vest, which I wear every day. They are so warm, you won't want to take them off. SPS luggage and gear. And coats and jackets. Pendleton, Schaefer Outdoors. They're the wardrobe consultants for Yellowstone. Rips Jackets. You can get it. You can get Rips Jacket at Hewlett & Dunn. You can get John Dutton's jacket at Hewlett & Dunn. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, kids' toys. They've got great-looking women's shoes. Dolce Vita boots. Man, they've got dresses, tops, great-looking women's clothing. They carry the full line of barber gear, the barber jackets, shirts, sweaters, vests, the quilted vests, Devil Dog jeans, Old South t-shirts and button downs and short sleeve shirts, ginormous selection of duck heads. They've got everything Duckhead makes, vests, blazers. They've got button downs, polos, pants. Got a lot of pants. Okay. They got a 50% off rack. The Rock Mount shirts that Elvis wore, Ronald Reagan wore, Bob Dylan still wears, Robert Plant still wears. John Cougar Mellencamp, I think, wears them as well. They've got it all. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, hewlettandunn.com. Matt, I got college basketball sipping in right now, and someone asked me, I'm going to get to that question in a minute, but they asked me, what are your thoughts on what you've seen out of college basketball so far? You got a top 5 teams, top 10, or is it still way too early to tell? But I do like these significant non-conference matchups early because they usually prepare you for later.
Well, that's a great question. I wasn't expecting that today, but I'll give you kind of my thoughts on college basketball. Because I've been guilty. I have not watched my normal load, but a lot of that happens because we're so consumed with bowl games in the college football playoff. I've watched UConn a little bit, and I think they are talented enough to make another run. They were last year's national champion. In the NCAA tournament last year, Rob, I think they had like one of the largest margins per victory of any tournament run for a finalist. I mean, they were just very, very tough at the end of the year. Purdue, we always mention, it seems like the last few years we've mentioned Purdue, and then they let us down in March Madness, and that could still happen. You have a dominant post player in Zach Edney, but sometimes these coaches get creative. He gets in foul trouble, and it's a different game in tournament basketball. It's interesting. Kelvin Sampson, Houston is 13-0.
Yeah.
13-0. Kansas, Bill Self, 12-1. Still, they beat UConn at Allen Fieldhouse. But I'll tell you the team I'm really impressed about it. I don't want to be called a homer here, but Penny Hardaway has done a really nice job assembling a roster with University of Memphis. And you talk about a team that could be making an under the radar. I say it's not under the radar here. I mean, we're definitely on the radar here.
Yeah.
But I think they're a team that I wouldn't want to play in the NCAA tournament, and they're having a great start, and they're up to 15th in the country, 11-2. And I cannot talk about basketball and not mention the fact that Chris Beard has Ole Miss at 13-0 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy can coach, he can motivate. He got off the grid a little bit and got in some trouble. And had to, lost a really good contract at Texas. But hey, a year later, picks up another good contract, inherits some, because I was always a Kermit Davis fan at Ole Miss.
Yeah, me too.
And I still am. He's a class act. He's a great coach. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. But Chris Beard, man, he is the real deal. And if you ask me right now, too, I mean, the SEC with the resurgence of Ole Miss, you got Kentucky. Calipari's squad is really, really talented. They've only got 2 losses so far. The veteran squad of Tennessee will be up there. I don't know too much about what's going on at Arkansas, but Rob, your Tigers are 10-2. I mean, Bruce has got those guys playing some really good ball. I think in a couple of weeks here, we're going to know a little bit more about what the next layer of teams are. Arizona, who a lot of people had preseason top 5, Rob, they've already got 3 losses. Not that it's, I mean, you're going to accumulate. We're not going to see many of Bobby Knight's, 1976 undefeated team.
Yeah.
They're just not going to happen. There's a lot of parity. And that's my initial thoughts, Rob. I don't know if there's a clear-cut number 1 for me right now, but I do think looking at UConn early, they're going to be a team that's going to be able to make a run at getting back to the Final Four and kind of defending their national championship.
Well, I mean, UConn, Big East basketball is really good. They had 3 or 4 teams go deep in the tournament last year. Marquette. That's a really good program. I love college basketball. And, we bounced this idea around about these early games. They start first week in November with college basketball games. And it really is, here it is coming up Saturday, January 6th. Conference play starts around the country from most conferences. If it hadn't already, it'll start Saturday. So that's 2 months that college basketball is played, but it just cannot escape the giant shadow of college football.
No.
And when Michigan and Washington play the last play Monday night and the national champion is declared, college basketball takes over. And we do it. We've been doing this show for a while. We do football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. And we'll talk pro sports because you can't help but do it because they all are intertwined. Watched the Grizzlies game again last night. Fell asleep in front of the fire. John Morant, it's fun to watch. And Desmond Bain played his basketball up in Indiana. A hell of a player. And college basketball. Where did Desmond Bain play college basketball?
TCU, right?
Yeah, TCU. That's right. Yeah. And TCU's had some good teams the last few years. But I love what is happening this time of year because there's a lot going on. And, next year we're talking about the college football playoff going into, say, January 22nd or 23rd. And then you'll have the all-star games after that, the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine game, and all like that. And then somebody will start February 10th or 15th with spring practice. So we won't go that long without college football. But I want to get to Penny Hardaway. 13 of the 14 players on the roster are first-year players for the Tigers. Am I correct in that?
When you define first year, are you talking about
on that roster? I'm not saying the first time they've ever played.
Right, but
transfers.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. What he has done to transform that roster. Because last year they lost a really tough game. Remember the FAU who made it to the Final Four?
Yes,
in that first round, and it was a game that could have gone either way. So they lost Kendrick Davis, who was their star guard last year that went to the NBA. DeAndre Williams did not get approved for another waiver, even though I don't know how he was eligible for a waiver in the first place. And they thought Dandridge was leaving the portal, and he came back to them. But yeah, Rob, they've got. You talk about taking a roster and flipping it. Remarkable what they've done. You look at David Jones is their leading scorer. I didn't even know who David Jones was, Rob, until the beginning of this season. And the point guard from Alabama, Rob, that I've always liked. Is it Quinterly?
Yeah.
I gotta make sure I'm pronouncing
Javon Quinterly.
Quinterly.
Yeah.
Just sets the table and probably, and I don't want to dismiss other point guards Penny has had, but by pure definition, he seems to manage that team kind of like a quarterback that Penny wants as a former.
Let's take a break. Hold on one second. We're going to be right back. All right. So pick back up where you were. We just had to take a quick break, and we're right back with you.
No, I was just saying that just real impressed with the Memphis roster, and I love Quinterly, the point guard, the transfer from Alabama. So when I was coaching basketball, Rob, the point guard was an interesting position. I've had point guards that are offensive minded. I have point guards that can't shoot the ball. I have point guards that I've coached point guards that are in between. And I've always been fond of the point guard that was obviously pass first, get teammates involved, set up and run the offense. But if you needed them to make a play, they were able to do that as a secondary type option. And to me, that's a little bit Quinterly. Quinterly can score, but he tries to get everyone else involved. And I think you're seeing the results of that. The team has just flourished. And, them in Florida Atlantic, FAU, who last year went to the Final Four, are going to be fun to watch in the American. And honestly, I could see Memphis overtaking them this year, which is quite a statement because FAU's got most of their roster back. They had a magical run last year, Rob. Some of those games they were down and came back in, and they flipped the script. And I have a lot of respect for FAU because I love the way they guard. They're not adverse to what I always used to call stop, score, stop. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of times we have to, as basketball teams, we got to get multiple stops in a row to spark a run on a comeback or to extend a lead.
Yeah.
And FAU is a great example of that. If you watched that Tennessee game last year with them in the tournament, you know, Tennessee was kind of up 5-7 most of the game. And in the last 10 minutes, they just kicked their tail and took over the game. And when you're a defensive-minded team, a lot of my good teams were like that. We would have the ability that we could stay within a close range of an opponent. And we knew over a 5-minute stretch that we could get our defense going. That would extend our defense would get our offense going essentially, and then we could extend the game or take the lead and win it in regulation.
Yeah. I mean, in college basketball games, the NBA, the fourth quarter is when they really start. These guys are so good, but it's not that they're not doing anything for the first three, but in the fourth quarter, that's money time, money ball. But looking at college basketball, to go back to, I'm just Chris Beard. This guy's a hell of a coach. They're 13-0. They were winning a lot of close games early. Now they're winning by more. That's what's making them a better team. They're going to get into conference play. I think they got to play at Tennessee Saturday.
They do. Tough game.
Now, Rick Barnes, every year they get ranked high, a lot of expectations at Tennessee, but hadn't gotten them where Tennessee fans want to be, Final Four, national championship. What is it with the talent? I mean, they've got the players, but what is it about Rick Barnes, that staff, that culture that just can't get – and then same on the flip side, what about Purdue? What about Purdue and what they do? They've always got the big guys. They're strong during the regular season, but they're not going deep. Why is those two teams? Let's address them. We got a few minutes left.
Well, how about we look at last year as a great example? Remember when Tennessee punched Duke in the mouth, a young Duke team, right? And they looked terrific because they out-physicaled them. And then essentially we all thought they had a path to the Final Four because they drew Florida Atlantic on the other side, right? And I just think last year was a great example. One of the things that Tennessee does at a high level is they guard the ball, okay? Teams that guard the ball and play at both ends of the floor, one of Tennessee's deals is, you know how we say sometimes in offense that there are not enough balls to go around, right? When you got a really offensive-minded team, because we got so many guys that want to score the ball. You've heard that analogy before, I'm sure, Rob. I think the opposite is for Tennessee. I don't think they have that go-to person offensively sometimes that you need consistently to score a bucket to end the drought, if that makes sense. They are so defensive-minded, which is great. It keeps them in games against better people or better teams longer than you would think, but also against competition that you would think is inferior. It allows people that have shot makers to stay in the games. And therefore, I think, you even look at their roster this year, they've got Vescovi back, they got James back, they got some really nice pieces. The Connect kid is a nice transfer. But I still, when I watch them play, they still go through some scoring droughts. And that's the thing. It's pretty easy. The one thing about college basketball versus college football. College football, Rob, you're going to play offense, defense, or special teams. Now, we have some young players that get special teams assigned to them, right?
Yeah.
But in basketball, man, you've got to do both. And if you're a great offensive player and you can't guard a mannequin, what I have to do as a coach is figure out a way how I can assign you either the best defensive matchup for you, or sometimes that's maybe why we disguise and play a little matchup zone or whatever, right? Rick Barnes is a master at getting out and guarding in man. If I had one critique of Coach Barnes, and I can't because he's a Hall of Famer to be, is sometimes I would like to see them get out of that man sometimes and throw a different look at people to confuse them, because I always felt like I had a saying, Rob, if you're going to zone me, I'm going to zone you back. Yeah. And what I meant by that is, pretty much when we have our man-to-man offense clicking, I'm controlling the tempo. I'm controlling the action. You're going to have to guard that. But when you throw a zone at me, I have to change the alignment. It's different. It's different staging. It's different space. And quite frankly, sometimes it forces me to take more of a perimeter shot. Even though everyone says we get it to the high post, we attack the short corner, we dive to the low block, we get a layup. It's great in theory, but watch these teams struggle against zones. We see it all across the country.
Yeah.
And I think with Tennessee, sometimes they get stubborn defensively because they're so good in man. They won't give a different look to people when some of these runs are going through because they'll get zoned because they're not always the best perimeter shooting team. I would like them to zone them back. And that was one of my philosophies in the last 5 years of coaching is not that I have to play zone if you play zone, but what I want you to do is I want you to have to think more on offense. And sometimes it's like we're gonna go man on make, zone on miss. You probably back in your old days of coaching middle school basketball, if you did that, everybody in the world's been a basketball coach, Rob. That's why when you go coach a game, everybody in the stands thinks they know more than you. I'm just telling you.
You're right. You're exactly right.
When I became a head coach, I told my wife, don't sit by the parents. You're going to get mad. You're going to leave the game. I go, find a corner. If you want to take the boys to the game, find a corner of the stands that no one's around. And they'd always come up to it's like, hey, we want to see you more. No, we don't. Because when my team's struggling, you think you have the answers. And really, in football, you can't do that, Rob. You got 11 on 11. You got so much things that I got to stop the tape to watch line of scrimmage, who missed the block or whatever. Basketball's not like that. Everybody's got all the answers in basketball. Trust me, I've lived it my whole career.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So in basketball, us coaches are very principled. Rick Barnes, I promise you, believes that he can teach his man-to-man, and his teams are better man-to-man about anyone in the country. And they are. The problem is, Rob, you got to be able to score points too. And
no, you're right. No, look.
I just think that's their problem.
No, I agree. And look, I've got to get you back on. We'll have Coach John Brady on next week. I want to have you on when Coach Brady's on. We'll start doing our basketball panels, having Coach John Brady, Coach Matt Dean. This will be a lot of fun because people, and also basketball, you got a triangle in two, you got the shuffle and roll.
Which is my favorite defense, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, explain that real quick. And we got a couple of minutes left. Explain that to just Joe Sixpack out there who's going, what? Triangle in two? Because you hear these terms thrown around all the time. If I talk to clients about scattergrams and 200-day moving averages, they lose me. What I need to say is that stock's been trending upward. You're making money. Okay, I understand that. Explain it real quick, and then we'll let you go.
Okay, so a couple subpoints. First of all, a lot of where I learned my triangle two is off of Rick Majerus DVD, God rest his soul, because Rick Majerus, the great coach who was Al McGuire's assistant in 1977 when Al McGuire and Marquette beat North Carolina for the national championship, okay?
Yeah.
Rick Majerus was his top guy. So then Rick Majerus actually took Utah to the Final Four back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Remember, I think that's when Kentucky – that may have been when Tubby Smith won it. I'm not sure. But anyway, triangle two is very simple. If I know you don't have – if I know for a fact, Rob, you don't have more than 2 3-point shooters on the floor, okay, in today's world of college basketball, I should triangle them to you, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to put – this is the way I do it a lot. If we're triangling two in you, I'm going to take your best 2 perimeter threats, and I don't care if they can put the ball on the floor or not, and I'm going to face guard and put my best 2 defenders on them, and usually they're probably perimeter players, and we're going to take them out of the offense. And then my triangle, I call the monster. I'm going to put that person at the free throw line. That's my monster, and I got my 4 or 5 block to block. They're on a string, going to short corner, block to block. My monster has the ability to help on any drives that come to the middle. But the reality of the situation is we're going in to play Millsaps for a conference championship. I think this is 12-13. No, it's actually 13-14. And they were the number 1 seed. We're the number 3 seed. We knew they had 2 really good shooters. And our debate as a staff was we're on the road playing them for a championship. Would we do it after halftime before there was less chance for adjustment, or would we start the game in it? And they could adjust, during the game. We decided as a staff, I let all my staff speak their piece, we're going to come out in the triangle in 2. And this is a team, Rob, that had beaten us twice. They beat us at our place in overtime by 2, and we lost to 7 at their place in the game. We led most of the way late. It got away. We were up at half, Rob, 39-12. We won that game by 16 points. They never got within – the closest they got was a three-pointer at the buzzer. And what it did was they were a great man-to-man team. They were hard to guard, Rob. But they kept running man stuff against our triangle and two, Rob, and they ran right into the monster, and they couldn't get good shots off. And here's another thing I believe, honestly, Rob, 3 is greater than 2.
Yep.
If I can defend the three-point line and run you off the three-point line and you want to settle for 15 to 17-foot jump shots, go ahead, because that's a tough shot, but it's only worth 2. If I let you open for 3, 3 is greater than 2, but you got to rebound out of it, Rob. Those people below, they have a tough assignment. They're on an island. They don't necessarily have body on body. They got to find closest man concept when the shot goes up. But we'll talk about that further. Maybe Coach Brady and I can debate the triangle.
I'll get him on next week, and I'll try to get him on like Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, see what he can do. But have you on there with him, because people ask me all the time. You've forgotten more than I know, Coach Brady, both of y'all. I love basketball, but when you can understand this, it slows the game down somewhat. So I love it. Matt Dean, thanks so much for your time. Will Gunter in the first hour. Wild and fun show today from Memphis. This is Rob Browne, Sidelines, all of our sponsors. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our listeners, our viewers everywhere. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us, folks. We're all blessed. Go out and bless others. Make it happen. Find excuses to win in everything you do. We are out of here. We'll see you tomorrow.